Good evening. Thank you for joining us for the May 26th Board of Selectmen's meeting. If everybody would please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to apologize for being a few minutes late this evening. We've had a couple of committee appointments that went over, but we're ready to roll now. First, we'll start off with a couple of public hearings, and public hearing number 1 is to receive comments on the June 9th, 2015 referendum question on whether or not Waterboro voters will approve borrowing up to $700,000 to build a sand salt shed on Bennett Hill Road. And our town administrator has prepared a PowerPoint presentation that will give everybody the information that they need to know about the salt shed that's being proposed. So Gary, I'll turn that presentation over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. David, you can run that when ready. Mike, if it gets loud out there in the lobby, would you mind snapping that door closed, please? Thank you. All set? One of the questions on the ballot this spring is whether or not voters would approve to borrow up to $700,000 to build a new sand salt shed. And kind of redundant there. The shed is definitely too small for adequate salt storage now, as you'll see in just a minute. We can hold enough for just about 2 to 3 storms. This is our sand pile that's outdoors presently. Rainwater comes down and through that, leaches the salt away, causing us to use more salt to keep the salt pile from freezing. Putting it in a dry building, both the salt and the sand, would certainly save on salt costs considerably. There's the front door for the existing shed. I mean, whether or not we build a new one or not, obviously we have some repairs to do in this building, and you'll see on the next slide the size of the pile that we have inside. The walls in this shed are probably 5 feet tall, if that. The cement walls on the left, that's completely inadequate to store enough salt in there. You can't get the pile very tall. Back along, some people put wood up there to pile the salt against it, and structurally it's bowing out the walls because the pile is resting against the wooden frames. And we've made some significant reductions in the amount of sand we've used in town here, from 5,000 to 3,000 cubic yards. We think we can cut that by a third again. Obviously, that would mean using more salt in some situations. A salt-only load would go out, and that's a fine thing. DOT estimates upwards to $125 a yard of sand is what it costs you for doing everything with it, hauling it, piling it up, mixing it with salt, putting it on the road, and then over the next few years coming back and periodically cleaning it out of the ditch, which is probably the biggest cost of that. So you can see that we can save considerable sums of money, upwards to $50,000, if we cut our sand usage by 1,000 cubic yards. The site that we're talking about doing this in is next to the sand pile and the Public Works garage, behind the transfer station. And it's the site of 2 old lagoons from the tannery from decades ago. Contaminants were put in those lagoons, permitted by DEP, but those contaminants are still in the soil. It's been identified by DEP through a couple of site assessments that plume of contaminants is moving toward the brook, away from the Public Works garage. And one of the benefits of putting a large structure on top of one of these lagoons is that it would keep the rainwater out of that, stop rainwater from leaching down through the soil and carrying those contaminants even farther. It wouldn't stop it, but it would certainly slow it down. We'll see in another picture coming up, the second lagoon behind where I'm standing in the middle of this first lagoon would actually be capped and covered with some remediation landscaping, maybe a clay layer, something that's definitely impermeable to rainwater going down through the soil strata. And I'm standing right about in the middle of this first lagoon, so it's a pretty sizable excavation site that used to have the chemicals dumped directly in that. So the salt shed would cover this first lagoon that I'm standing in there. In terms of dollars, this went to the voters, I believe, several years ago at $550,000, I think. It was defeated, but we've looked at other buildings that are about the same size. One recently was built for $650,000. So we thought it would be smart to ask for up to $700,000, and when the bids come in, hopefully we'll be down into the low to mid 600,000s to build that building. So some significant savings can offset that annual payment of up to $77,000 a year. We've talked about how that is. In other words, reduced sand, lower salt costs in terms of what we have to put in by having a dry building. And so that's the offset, if you will, in terms of what you might be saving if we built this building. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them. You can do that right now, or you can contact me anytime at Town Hall. And we do have some additional handouts here that are not just the PowerPoint, but a little more information. Other than that, I'll turn it back to the chair for questions from the floor.
Thank you. Doug, did you want to, as Public Works Director, would you like to comment on this project?
Yes, I guess I will. There's been a lot of comments about we have no idea about what we're doing, we don't have plans. Well, we do have plans. Have had these plans for several years. It's a complete set of plans for this is I hope to have had a new set of plans today, but I had to put them in a PDF file before they could send them to me. I don't know what you want to do with these, but there's a plan for the overall site plan. This is a plan of the foundation of the building. This is the specifications. There's 2 pages of those. There's a grading plan. Would you like to look at them, or what would you like to do with them?
You can leave them there.
The building that's been proposed is 80 by 140. So got concrete walls around the perimeter, and it's an arch type of building. Our present building will hold about 250 tons of salt. As the years have gone by, salt prices have gone up and down, and the salt at times has been extremely hard to get. We're fortunate that we've stuck with the same supplier, so they have made sure that we haven't run out. We've gotten low but not run out. In its present design, this would have a capacity of over 1,000 tons of salt and 3,500 yards of sand. It'll have a movable concrete wall up the middle of it that will allow the sand or salt usage to be changed, or the volume to be changed, and the wall just slid one way or the other. These are a standard concrete wall. They're a T-shaped wall that you stand up and you fill against both sides of them. And they're designed to be movable. When this building was built, close to 40 years ago, the town was about half the size it is now. The amount of salt we used was minimal. As times have gone on and the cost of picking up the sand has gone up, it's become evident that if we wanted better roads, we had to find a better way. So increased salt usage has been a way to do that. There are now alternatives to using straight salt. There are additives that can be added to the salt. Many of them have to be mixed into the salt before you add it to your vehicle to spread. One of these is a biodegradable product. It's a product of beer. and it decreases the temperature that salt will work at by up to 16 degrees. If anybody's curious about it, they can go to North Berwick. Wells uses a lot of it. It works very well. There are other things that you can put down to help it. Chlorides and other types of non-biodegradable substances. But this one seems to work well. You mix it in with your material, your salt, as you're putting it up, and it dries and makes a brownish colored salt that works at a better temperature. The state of Maine estimates the cost of a yard of salt from the top, sand, from the time you pick it up until you and put it into a pile until the time you pick it up again out of the ditches or sweep it up is over $100 a cubic yard. I think that's a little far out, but we could conservatively, after 14 years, start making money on this building. The building will pay for itself over a 14-year period, and it'll keep our products drier. We'll have less waste. We'll have way less contamination of the ground. Our initial salt usage for the sand pile will drop considerably. For the amount of salt that we put in a cubic yard of sand now, or amount of salt that you put in a building is about 50%. So the opportunity is here, and the time is at hand. The town has grown. People want good roads. Many people you talk to are worried about pollution, so this takes care of all of it. Moreover, this will cap the lagoons. In 13 years, the state didn't look at these lagoons until we filed a plan to put a building on it. And now, after 3 years and 2 separate studies, they've decided that this is the ideal way to contain the problem that we have at the transfer station. Part of the cost will be to remediate the second site. So we have the plans. There's been 2 of these buildings constructed. They come in at $640,000 a piece. We have a set of plans of the one that was built in Orono, and we have researched the plans for the one that's been built in Shapley. Shapley built theirs a little bit different than what we have in mind, and they're thinking now they wish they'd have done something a little different. Their building isn't big enough, and so we have an opportunity to step into the 21st century and save money at the same time. And I'd urge everybody to think seriously and vote in favor of this. Anybody got any questions?
Comments from the board. First, I think that when we put this project forward a number of years ago, I think the board didn't do a very good job ourselves of promoting the building of this salt shed. And I think the point that we need to make sure is made about this shed is, along with the cost of saving on the sand and the salt, the other issue that we have is that because of the issues that DEP has identified at the site with the old lagoons, this is a way for the town to remediate that. So if the voters opt not to approve the salt shed, then we may want to expect later on in the future DEP is going to make us do some work to clean up the site. So as we look at, do we want this sand salt shed? Do we not want to pay for the cost of it? I think we also have to consider what's in the best interest of the town. We can invest the money in building the salt shed and see at least some savings from that, from the decreased use in sand and saving the salt from leaching out, and have a building that we're going to have and we're going to have use of. Or if we choose not to do anything, then later on we have to pay the DEP cost of the cleanup and we have nothing to show for it. So at least the option of the salt shed gives the municipality a way of saving money, and it gives us a structure that we're going to use for many years to come. So as a selectman, I wholeheartedly support building this salt shed because I think at this point in time, it's the most responsible financially and for an environmental standpoint. John?
Same. Last time, I can't tell you that I was really enthusiastic about supporting it. I wasn't against it. I was kind of for it, but now the reasons are strong to have it. So I'm very, very much in support.
Gordon?
I'm fully in favor of it. Anything that we can do that's going to reduce the amount of monies that we're going to have to raise in taxation. If we can get a savings out of this, I think that that's beneficial. It's also beneficial from the standpoint that DEP has given the blessing on this salt shed as well as a means of controlling the environmental issues that are present down there. If we continue to allow that area to leach out, it's eventually going to reach the brook, and who knows where it's going to go from there in terms of damaging, more of the environment. So I would wholeheartedly suggest that people take a strong look at this and vote for it at the referendum.
Gary? You want to make any other comments?
Nope, not at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions or comments from the public? Dwayne?
Dwayne, what's some kid?
We're on TV, Dwayne.
Come on. Can somebody just give me a figure per 1,000 on our tax dollar to what this will cost over the next 10 years?
Gary?
Every $7,500, or just a little north of that, is a penny on your tax rate. So this would be, at the full 700,000, about 11 cents.
Per 1,000.
Yes. Yep.
And we need to consider that the flip side of that is that there is going to be some cost savings with the sand and the salt.
Just on the expense side without the savings.
That's questionable, yes. By the time I got to agree with Mr. Foglio, the salt brine, the beer brine and the salt brine, two different things. But if you're going to set up that type of a building, you're probably going to want to go to a salt brine, which is probably another $100,000 machine that's going to sit beside of that salt shed so you can make your own brine. You can buy it, but it's over the next 10 years, it's going to be a lot cheaper to buy the machine and make your own brine with your water. You've already got water up there, so salt and water makes a brine. That works till you get down to about 15 degrees, and then you go to the beer brine. If you've got to have a hot load, you're going to want something after 15 degrees. But I can't agree with Mr. Foglio as far as mixing it with the salt, because he's going to have a brick up there. That stuff does not mix with salt until you put it in the truck and get it out.
Any other questions, comments? Doug?
Well, again, Mr. Woodson speaking out of turn. We can use a salt brine. I don't prefer it personally. If you talk to the towns that use this stuff, if it's properly handled, it works. It drops the temperature down 15 degrees, and that's all they use down there. The last time the town of Wells put up sand was 6 years ago. I screened it for them, put it in the barn. It's still in there. Yeah, slow but surely using it. The quality of the sand has decreased, so it's nothing but dust now. Sand will decrease when you put salt in it. The salt has a tendency to eat the sand into a dust form. So the mixture that they're using down there is very adequate. It's the only thing they use on their roads. They haven't used a load of sand in several years, and if anybody questions it, they can get down there and look at it. And this stuff, once it's mixed properly and allowed to dry inside the building, and we can't do that now. We can't mix it because we don't have the area in which to do that. We only can back up and dump it. And if you look at the building that we have now, if it was half empty of salt, you'll see where the walls in the building have started to deteriorate seriously at the base. That's gonna need some work. The building has outlived its life as a salt shed. It could be used as a storage building, or maybe rejuvenated and used for some other purpose. But as far as a salt shed goes, its life expectancy has gone. As far as the remediation of the site, if the taxpayers don't do this, DEP has not come out with a specified site plan of what they want. We've talked to the engineers about it, and the number that they float is upwards of $100,000 to just remediate the site, because you're going to have to do something to stop the water from leaching down through the soil and into the site. Right now, the tests have gotten better over the last 10 years, but they're still way above the levels that's acceptable. So they've got to stop this leach action that's taking place, and if this salt shed doesn't go through, the feeling is they're going to want something done in the very near future. Also, if this building's built, it will not affect your tax rate this year, and depending on the time it gets started, it may not affect your tax rate next year. Chances are it will affect it some, but that's not definite. It'll depend on the time it takes. It'll be a year after you take the bond before your first payment's due. Okay?
Thanks, Doug. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on the salt sand shed, and the PowerPoint presentation that was shown tonight is going to be available on the town website for folks to go through that again and get some more information. Moving on, we'll move on to the public hearing to receive comments on the proposed 2015-2016 fiscal year budget. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the warrant for town meeting as the document to go through tonight to review the budget, and I'm going to ask Gary to chime in as well with comments about this. Yes, Lee.
I was hoping maybe you could move us around on the agenda. I brought some people who was hoping to get the opportunity to speak with you. I didn't realize when you asked me to come here, it was really a public hearing.
Yeah, we have to do the public hearings first because that's the way that it was advertised. But as soon as we wrap this public hearing up, then I'd be happy to take you out of order.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, this year's proposed budget in the warrant, the way that you would see that it is set up is that there's 3 columns for each article. There's the town administrator's recommendation, the budget committee recommendation, and then the 2014 appropriation, so that you can see what the town administrator asked for versus what the budget committee recommended, and what the expenditure was, or the budgeted amount was in 2014. And then at the end of each article is the Board of Selectmen's recommendation. So I'll start, the first couple of articles all have to do with the elections, with the comprehensive plan, and with the sand salt shed. So we're going to look at Article 9 is county taxes. We're obligated to pay that, and that's a bill that we get from the county. And a little bit later this evening, we have County Commissioner Mike Cote, who represents our area, that's here tonight. And so maybe at that point, if he wants to make any comments about the county budget, that would be appropriate then. So we'll start with Article 10, which is the Board of Selectmen compensation, and that is requested to stay the same. Moving on to Article 11, a couple of increases in that line item, or differences between the town administrator and the budget committee, fall under legal. There's also an increase there in the cost for the town auditor, as well as cost for the animal control officer. For those items in Article 11, which is going to be your custodian, administrative assistant, motor vehicle agent, town administrator, dental health, retirement, meals, and so on and so forth. The recommendation of the town administrator is $435,950. The budget committee is recommending $407,450. And there's an explanatory vote, on the Board of Selectmen's recommendation is to reduce the vacant full-time front office position to a part-time position, which is a 2 to 3 day per week position that's been vacated by a retirement this past year, and $20,000 per year, reduced office supplies, and reduce the auditor's line.
Could I jump in quickly?
Yep.
Just in terms of formatting, in terms of understanding this document, the actual warrant, those explanatory notes are not part of the actual article you vote on. I put those in purposely so that people can read this document and understand a little bit about what's going on in the article. So I've done that, not on every one, but on quite a few, explaining the differences above. That's all I want to
All
say.
right, thanks, Gary. Moving on to Article 12, to see if the town will raise and appropriate $48,204 from excise, $15,425 from surplus, $129,187 from rescue billing fees, for a total of $192,816 for loans and leases. And the differences in this Article 12, in 2014, the appropriation on this was $166.5 thousand. The town administrator's request this year is $192,816. And the budget committee recommended $182,816. The difference here is a $10,000 in a new fire department vehicle. Currently, our rescue chief is utilizing her personal vehicle for responding on calls and for the purposes of performing duties for the fire department. And the town administrator has recommended that we purchase another vehicle that can be used by the deputy chief for that. There was a split vote on the budget committee, so there's no recommendation from them there. There's also a recommendation from the town administrator and the budget committee for a new 20 to 14 cubic yard dump truck, and that's at $20,000. And the reasoning behind that is that we found that the cost of hiring out for those vehicles far exceeded what it would cost if we purchased our own. So it made good financial sense there for us to invest in the vehicle ourselves. And I believe the cost last year was, Doug, correct me on that, was around $60,000 that we expended in renting that out. So we'd see roughly a $40,000 cost decrease. So that's just, made good sense to do that.
Is that over a lease?
Lease.
Yeah.
Lease to purchase.
5-year lease?
Yes.
The dump truck would probably be 8 to 10. Yep. And if you go over on page 6, in the explanatory notes, you'll see 3 bullets there that are chiming in with what Tammy Jo's been saying. First of all, we have to replace our new ambulance. We have to get that ordered. It takes upwards of a year to get it, and that's the top priority in my book. It's unreliable. It doesn't start a lot of the times. When the governor was here, we had to jump start it to get it back in the garage that evening. I mean, that's embarrassing. This is an emergency vehicle. Tammy Jo talked about the second bullet here. We're spending a great deal amount of money. When I did the numbers, and Julie helped me, to $65,000 a year we're spending in renting dump trucks and drivers. Just that fiscal decision alone is smart, to go and buy a dump truck. We'll find some other drivers to save at least the $15,000 to $20,000 a year in payments that it would be for that vehicle. And the other third bullet there is for administration, like what Tammy Jo talked about. the deputy chief found out that she would need commercial insurance to continue to drive her personal vehicle for emergency responses. I don't think we should be doing that to our staff. So I think we need to buy the deputy chief a vehicle. They can work out who drives what. I don't care about that. That's up to the chief to do that. So sometimes these explanatory notes are very detailed like this one, and sometimes they're non-existent, and everything in between.
That's it?
Yeah.
All right, thanks. Article 13, this has to do with taxation for unemployment compensation. The recommendation from the Budget Committee and the Town Administrator is $205,000, and 2014 appropriation was $201,000. So that reflects the actual cost. Article 14 is the town clerk's position, and this is going to be wages, overtime, insurances, trainings, etc. And the recommendation on that is $58,311, and that's up slightly from $57,160 last year. Article 15 is the tax collector. Last year was $46,943. This year the recommendation is $47,865. Article 16 is for the treasurer, and the recommendation for that is $64,805, and that's up from $59,897 last year. And a portion of that is in the treasurer's wages. One of the things that was recognized was that her wages there had fallen below what some of the norms were, so that's going to help to compensate that position. Article 17 is cable TV fees from taxation, and this is going to be the IT department, and the total on that last year was $107,381, and that's going up, recommended this year to be $112,591 from the town administrator, and the budget committee recommended $112,091, and some of the increase there is in salary and also in some software cost. Article 18 is appropriating up to $12,000 from cable TV franchise fees to replace replace equipment that has to do with broadcasting if an emergency rises, and we need to do that, and that's same as last year. Article 19 is to raise $82,600 from surplus for municipal building equipment and maintenance, street lights, fuel oil, traffic lights, and electricity for the year ensuing. And this was actually, there's a decrease here. Last year's appropriation was $98,600, and this year the town administrator is recommending $82,600, and the budget committee is recommending $77,000 here, with the difference being in some equipment repair, a little bit of cost savings in fuel and in electricity.
And if I may, one more little
Yes.
factoid here. Under building repairs, you'll see in this year, the 2014 appropriation column, we've set $25,000 aside to do the siding on the 3 sides of the old town hall building, which is embarrassing in places. We're going to carry that forward. We haven't done that project yet, but that will be done before cold weather this year. So that line has gone from $25,000 down to $5,000. That's the reason for that. Thank you.
Article 20 is for the assessing department, and there's quite a difference in recommendations here. In 2014, the appropriation was $39,000, and that is what was recommended this year by the town administrator, but the budget committee actually recommended $56,000. And the reason being is that the budget committee felt that it was in the best interest of the town at this point to increase the hours that our assessor is working. What we're finding is that 2 days a week isn't enough for the assessor's office to really keep up with the work that could be done. And having more hours is going to allow them to have more time to go out, do inspections on buildings, and make sure that we're getting all of the money that we should through assessing. So that's the difference there. Article 21 is $70,707 for the code enforcement department. This includes the code enforcement officer, the deputy code enforcement officer, their dues and subscriptions, books, A line for legal. Last year, the appropriation was $61,000. This year, $70,000 is recommended by the town administrator, and the budget committee is recommending $69,000. The selectmen are recommending the budget committee's recommendation. And the major increase in this article is because we have a new CEO with expanded hours and getting out, doing more, so we're also finding that we're reimbursing more mileage. Article 22, see if the town will raise and appropriate $98,985 from taxation for the library department, and this is going to be salaries, insurance, retirement, and as well as building maintenance, equipment maintenance, books and whatnot. The 2014 recommendation appropriation was $93,763. The request from the town administrator was $95,395, and the budget committee recommended $93,260. The selectmen are recommending the town administrator's recommendation, with the exception for some salaries and dues and subscriptions. Most of the selectmen improved the increase as a plan to increase the library hours by 5 hours per week, gaining back some of the 11-hour per week reduction that we saw in 2009 when we were trimming the budget. Article 23 is Parks and Rec Department, and we're looking to raise and appropriate $102,000 from surplus, $154,000 from department revenues, for a total of $257,138. This is going to take care of salaries for our full-time and part-time staff, as well as the people that we have working on some of the programs. It takes care of retirement, dues, subscriptions, electricity, vehicle maintenance, ground maintenance, and equipment maintenance for all of the fields, gas, diesel, advertising, the programs that they print every year. And last year the appropriation was $257,152, and the administrative, the budget committee, and the selectmen were all on the same page with that one this year. Article 24 is $9,945 for the Waterboro Planning Board, and that's down slightly, $1,000 from last year, and that's a reduction in the legal fees. Article 25 is $104,262, and that is going to be for the planning, taxation for the planning department. And we're taking a little bit of a different stance this year with the planning department. In years past, we've hired a town planner that worked for us, and this year we're going to actually contract out some of those services. And by doing that, we found that we were going to see a significant cost savings there. Gary, did you want to touch on how that was going to work anymore?
Yep, first of all, Lee J. Feldman, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand. Lee J. is the gentleman who would probably be the lead staffer at Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission here, that would be working with the planning board and doing the town planner services in that vein. And one of the things Southern Maine Planning and Development Corporation has done, commission, in other towns, is a developer comes in, he knows he's going to get X number of free hours of staff time to prepare his application, answer questions, and those types of things. Beyond a certain limit, and that will be identified in the application, we would bill the applicant X number of dollars per hour to recoup some of those costs so that the taxpayers don't have to pay all of that. That's worked well in other towns they do this for, and I think that's a good thing to look at here if this is approved at town meeting. The other thing we've done here, down on the fourth line down, if you're looking at the warrant, you'll see a new EDC position. There's another staff member at Southern Maine Planning, was very experienced with finance and economic development. We would have him over here, plus or minus a day a week, to be working with our Economic Development Committee, which is revitalized and has a number of people and a number of great people doing good work. They're motivated to make a difference here in town. And the line just above that, entitled Town Planner and Secretary Salary, you've seen that that's gone from $76,000 down to zero because of what went on in the two lines up above. We would also take the planning / code enforcement administrative assistant secretary to full-time, 40 hours a week, and that's really needed right now for all the activity that's going on here. She needs that quiet time on Monday to get caught up with paperwork. That a lot of times just doesn't happen the rest of the week. Other things in this article are pretty cut and dried. Those are the big changes. And on the top of page 12, you see explanatory note that essentially says just what Tammy, Joe, and I in terms of changes in terms of staffing here with a contract planner.
Article 26 is for the Zoning Board of Appeals, and that's for $2,375, which is up slightly from last year's appropriation. Article 27 funds the fire department, and this is for salaries, per diem, overtime, insurance, retirements, training, heating oil, telephone maintenance, equipment maintenance, radios, EMA, our dispatch fees that we pay to Sanford Regional Dispatch are in there as well.
Biddeford?
Excuse me, Biddeford. So the fire department side of this is recommended by the town administrator. He asked for $779,727 on the fire side and $108,600 for EMS, which is your ambulance, uniforms, and whatnot, for a total of $888,327 for fire EMS. The budget committee recommended $880,000, and that is last year's appropriation was $860,000. We have air packs that need to be replaced. They need to be cycled through. We ran into an issue years ago where we found that all of the air packs needed to be replaced at once. And that's probably not the best practice. So what we want to get into the practice of doing is replacing some every year so we don't see one big bill all at once. So that's part of that, as well as some travel cost.
Eliminate code red.
The code red is when we have storms that are rolling through. Sometimes you get the text messages or the emails or the phone calls announcing that. County government actually has code red, so county is paying for it, and then Waterboro is paying for it as well. So we've eliminated it from Waterboro, saving that money, and we'll be utilizing what we're already paying for in our county taxes. All right.
28.
28, turn the page. Article 28 is $42,000 from taxation for hydrant rentals. This is something we have to rent the hydrants every year from the water district. And the town administrator, budget committee, and selectmen were all in agreement on that total. Article 29 funds the Ross Corner Fire Department for $8,743. That's up a couple $100, $500 from last year. Article 30 is the transfer station, and this is our salaries, retirement, mileage, training. We have some container repairs in here this year, vehicle maintenance, building maintenance, sanding and plowing, the grinding, all of the tipping fees. This is what it cost us to run the transfer station. And the town administrator recommendation was $425,604, and that's up from $406,553 last year. Gary?
One comment on salaries on page 14 for this article. It looks like it's had about a $7,000 jump. That's not reality in terms of salaries going to staff. This has been underfunded in the past, in part because we allow employees to buy out their vacation time. If somebody comes to December and they haven't used any vacation time, we buy it, we pay them for it. So I guess you could say this is the first year that we've budgeted properly for that, because you can see if you have a budget document that we were spending well over the 73 budgeted in the past. We were in the $77,000 to $78,000 bracket. So that $7,000 apparent salary increase is not all in salary to staff.
Thanks. Article 31 is our roads budget, and this covers our public works director as well as all of the other employees. This covers protective gear, clothing allowance, our culverts, our paving, sand and salt, street signs, electricity, pit restoration licenses, radios, our roads and bridges account, crushing, as well as all of our plowing. Last year, the appropriation was 1 million, and this year it's $1,111,400,000, which is above what the budget committee recommended by a little bit. Article 32 is general assistance, and the recommendation on that was $73,276, which is down from $118,000 last year. And Gary, you want to go into
I'll
that?
jump into it. We put some salaries where I think they belong. The general assistance administrator here, Nancy Johnson, works no more than 1 day a week, meeting with GA clients. And I thought that that should be reflected in this article as only 1 day's worth. So that's why the large decrease in the salary line here. The rest of that time, she's our lead motor vehicle agent working out front. So that salary amount has gone back under general government, which is why you see an increase back in that section. There's a significant reduction in rent here from $50,000 to $42,000. We had knowledge of somebody who supposedly was going to be moving out of the area, so we thought the 42 was a more accurate reflection of what we think we might be spending for rent in that year.
Okay. Article 33 is a non-money article, but it allows the Public Works Director to expend funds for emergency winter maintenance for public safety reasons. Article 34 is a contract deputy, and that's $108,000, recommended by the Town Administrative Budget Committee and the Board of Selectmen.
And 10,000 of that is 1/3 of a new vehicle payment.
Article 35 is for the various town committees that we have. The town administrator's recommendation is $88,000. This is going to be up from $50,000 last year. Board of Selectmen is recommending $75,000, and the Budget Committee is recommending $70,000. The difference between the Selectmen's recommendation is that we remove $10,000 hospitality marketing study that the Economic Development Committee had requested in their budget. Almost done. Article 36 is raising $14,708 from taxation to support York County Community Action, York County Shelters, Southern Maine Area Agency on Aging, the Biddeford Free Clinic, Levitt's Mill Free Health Clinic, Saco River Corridor Commission, Home Health Visiting Nurses, Kids Free to Grow, Caring Unlimited. And these are external agencies that send requests every year to the town to help fund their businesses, because they do serve some Waterboro folks. So those are the agencies that we've requested to be supported this year. Article 37 is $450,000 from taxation for the capital improvement program. And this year we're looking at the town hall ceiling, roof, and insulation, and I'm sure Gary's going to have a comment on that. $300,000 for the upgrade of roads. $10,000 for a secondhand pickup truck from the fire department. $10,000 for kitchen hood suppression system at the fire department. $50,000 for library roof work and insulation, and $25,000 for the fire department architectural study. And Gary, you want to talk a little bit about the ceiling and the roof here at the town hall?
Yep. Right above your heads, sometime in probably February or early March, the ice was 18 inches thick on this roof. We have a tremendous heat loss in this building and the library. We're wasting your money in not having proper insulation on here. So we need to fix that. It's unacceptable to me that both the library and the town hall can regularly leak inside the building. When either a new roof or some spray insulation up above would probably take care of 95% of that problem. So that's what the third line down of $55,000 would do. We'd be carrying forward a $15,000 amount from this year. So if we did put a new insulated roof on the outside, we would have enough funds for that. Upgrading of roads, I reduced that, the Selectmen and/or I reduced that last year from 300 to 285. That was left at $300,000 this year. Ambulance payment, there is no amount on here, even though we will order it. Secondhand pickup for the fire department. Theirs rusted out less than a year ago. We sold it because it wasn't worth fixing. And I think it's smart to buy a secondhand pickup truck for beating around town, going to the auto parts store, the hardware store, because other than that, they have to take a piece of fire apparatus, the forestry truck, and that's not smart. It's an expensive piece of equipment that doesn't need to be on the road, and certainly a secondhand pickup truck would work. The hood in the kitchen was taken out by Selectmen, and if we do an addition to the fire station down the road, that will be taken care of there. And we do need to make some changes and plan to make some changes in the fire station. We have co-ed students that work for us that live in that building, and we don't have proper locker rooms and sleeping facilities. And if you took a walk through there with that in mind, I think you'd agree that we need to start to make a plan for what we're going to do for internal renovations there. We don't even have a proper shower if our guys or gals get dirty on the site to go in there and get cleaned off. So we do need to make some changes there. That building was built not with the uses that we're giving it now in terms of staffing and overnight activities. I think that's it.
Okay. The rest of the articles are non-money articles. So the bottom line, this warrant represents the following approximate sources of revenue towards our total proposed municipal budget of $5,477,486. And there's a list here of where all of those revenues would come from. What this warrant represents is if this warrant is approved on all of the selectmen's recommendations, we would be looking at roughly a 29-cent increase on the mill rate. If it's passed at the town administrator's recommendation, then we would be looking at roughly a 39-cent increase on the mill rate, and the budget committee is somewhere in between there. Any comments to start with from the board? Nope. Gordon? Okay.
Just a lot of hours between the, all the meetings that we had and the budget committee and the town administrator to come up with this document.
And if you're not familiar with how the budget is created, we have an independent budget committee. And those folks get together with the town administrator and they look at the municipal budget and the requests from the department heads, and they come up with a budget that then gets recommended to the selectmen. We had several workshops with the budget committee, and we reviewed the town administrator's recommendations as well as the budget committee's recommendations, and took the consideration of both of those into our thoughts as we came up with what our recommendations are.
Before a change in the charter a couple of years ago, the budget committee got the budget after the selectmen had worked on it. So it first of all went to the town department heads, then came to the board of selectmen, and then the finance committee called at that time. Came in with their recommendations. Now the budget committee, which was the finance committee, works on it with the administrator and from early on, and the selectmen make the final decisions for them themselves. So they get it later on in the process, even though we are dealing with it as it's being developed. There's been, and that I have found to be a better process. I think the charter made a really good change there.
Is there any comments or questions from the public? Okay. Seeing none, we will wrap up the public hearing on the 2015-2016 fiscal year budget. We have no announcements, additions, or deletions to the agenda. Next up, we have your County Commissioner Michael Cote, but would you be willing to forego to State Representative Prescott for a few moments? So then we'll skip ahead to the agenda. And
I appreciate it.
We need that in a motion.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
no.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
No. So I invited Representative Prescott to come in and talk to us tonight about all of the ongoings in Augusta, and so appreciate you making the trek down to get here in time. And so what's going up north?
Well, we got a lot of bills. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna jump out of order because I had some people, when I mentioned it, they wanted to come and tell you firsthand what's going on. I got some people that work with me, or I guess on the other side of the podium, on the Insurance and Finance Committee. I know Eric, you come along with us. Why don't you get up first so you can head out?
Sure. Thank you. I'm Eric Chapa. I'm the Superintendent of Insurance, and Representative Prescott asked me to appear in case you had any questions. I told him, I'm more than happy to come down and answer any questions. I'm certainly not endorsing anyone or here in a partisan manner, but he said you may have some questions. I mean, insurance and financial services, we're dealing with the ACA, Affordable Care Act. We deal with property casualty insurance issues, and any type of insurance that comes across your desk, we likely deal with it, and the Insurance and Financial Services Committee does deal with that. So I told him I'd be more than happy to come down and answer any questions you may have about what's going on from an insurance perspective.
So what's likely to impact municipalities the most that's on your agenda this year,
The most
this session?
that's on our agenda this year, there has been some workers' comp self-insurance bills about investments that would apply to municipalities. That was passed. That was a Bureau of Insurance bill. Probably some of the health bills certainly may affect municipalities. It's not clear to me if your plans are ERISA or if you're fully insured or somewhere in between. They could affect municipalities. There's a bill on minimum model limits that certainly tangentially affects municipalities. So, direct effect, the direct nexus to municipalities is always going to be tangential for the most part, because municipalities have like 3 risk pools, which if you're a member of that, and I don't know if Waterboro is, but if you're a member of that, they're largely self-funded and exempt from state regulation.
Gary?
With MMA insurance, that's where we.
Right, they have 3 different risk pools. You're probably part of like the workers' comp and the general liability.
Yes.
For instance, there was a bill this year for the legislature, IFS, specifically about when a water main breaks, who's responsible for that. Mm-hmm. They wanted to have it on the homeowners policy. That didn't pass, but they were trying to find a ways that municipalities could cover it without giving up their exemption from liability.
I had a question about ACA related. Do you have any idea coming down the pipe of when the federal government is going to define a Cadillac tax plan?
It's pretty defined now. The Cadillac tax will be in 2018. It is defined, and if your plan is valued as over $10,000, $200, or double that for a family, you will be paying a Cadillac tax or an excise tax of 40 to 40, I think it's either 40 or 45% of the amount in excess of that. I know the state employee health plan is looking at a significant bill of about $8 million from the Cadillac tax, and that's strictly a function of the value of your plan over the value in the statute. And there's only 2 ways that I'm aware of, as the ACA is currently structured, to reduce the Cadillac tax. That's to increase co-pays and deductibles or decrease the cost of claims. That does apply or will apply to governmental entities as well, self-insured plans and fully insured plans. So that will affect you if your plan, if the value of your plan is high enough.
But it's still 2018.
It
Right.
is still 2018, and certainly hearing rumblings of repeal, but the current statute is pretty clear. It's a Cadillac tax. It's 2018, and again, I think the number last I saw for the state employee health plan was $8 million. You're going to have to pay in that, and it's a straight excise tax. It's anything over that value, it's either 40 or 45% tax.
I think it was 40.
Yeah, and that's
Thank you.
absent repeal that will be charged. So.
Gordon?
Is there any legislation that's going to affect rates of insurance for the average citizen? Because I know that there's a lot of cost associated with health insurance and prescription medications and so forth. Is there anything there that's going to help them in terms of reducing?
Well, reducing healthcare costs is what would we do with health insurance premiums, whether you're self-insured in MMA or not self-insured. There is a bill that's trying to encourage consumers to shop different healthcare providers, and if you do, the potential there would be that the consumers could share in some of the savings if you can get a cheaper procedure done. It's not clear. That bill is still being heard by the legislature. there, in terms of health insurance, there were a couple mandated bills that I don't believe passed this year that would have added to the cost. Because now, the way the ACA works, if the state government passes a health insurance mandate now, state government has to pay for that mandate. In other words, if they passed a mandate that applied to you, the state would have to pay for that. So that has slowed that process down. But controlling healthcare costs is, I think the legislature in Maine and nationwide is dealing with that issue. There was a property casualty bill that was going to increase the limits on auto insurance. I mean, Maine has some of the highest limits in the country, but we have, I think, third lowest auto premiums in the country, and that bill failed. So.
Prescription medication, is there any closer to allowing purchase of prescription medication from Canada to people that they have to make a decision whether or not they're going to eat or...
Absolutely, very good question. And the legislature actually passed a bill that would allow the importation of drugs from Canada. It got appealed at federal court, and I forget, it wasn't, the federal government ruled against Maine. It wasn't that it was unconstitutional. I can't remember the exact ruling, but Maine did specifically pass a law last session to allow for that. And we were taken to court by the pharmaceutical industry, and they won. So I'm not aware of the bill being reintroduced.
Actually, there is another bill that's being heard tomorrow.
I was going to say, I heard something on the news just in the.
That would be a different committee. That
Right.
Chris asked for. That would be a different committee. So that's good to hear. But I'm actually on the State Employee Health Commission, and we could have saved significant dollars by importation of drugs from Canada, and we lost that bill. But apparently there's another one being heard in a different committee tomorrow.
Thank you.
There was a study done several years ago down in Texas, somewhere in the Rio Grande. The two counties next to each other, one was an average healthcare cost, and the other one had the highest healthcare costs in the country, abutting each other. And when they looked into what was happening, and what was happening is in the most expensive healthcare costs, doctors, well, I won't get into whether they owned certain parts of facilities, but I think in saying that they were doing the job. However, what happens is there's a whole bunch of testing that is requested for clients or for patients that is unnecessary. MRIs and things like this that really, when looking at them, don't need to be done. And that bears a lot of the high cost of healthcare. Is there anything that is looking into helping the insurance companies keeping the costs down, monitoring testing?
With testing, back to the bill I just talked about that we actually were working on today at Insurance and Financial Services, there's tremendous variance in the same procedure from provider to provider. And I think they're trying to do more with transparency. In other words, can I ask what this procedure is going to cost? Because one of the examples at a public hearing a gentleman gave was a colonoscopy ranging from $800 to $7,000. And if you have a $200 deductible, either way, that's above your deductible, so there was no incentive for the person to shop. So, I mean, the tremendous variance in price, I think the legislature is trying to add more transparency and to see, is there a way to incentivize consumers to shop more aggressively with that. In terms of unreasonable testing, there is insurance companies, and I know someone from Anthem's behind me can speak to that as well. There is something in the policy, say, is this a medically necessary procedure? And the carrier can say, well, we don't think it's medically necessary. Now, the flip side of that is the consumer then has a right to appeal that decision, and that appeal can go all the way to our office. And finally, there's a bill that I don't think passed the legislature, but someone raised, it's an interesting idea, and I'm not sure it's been adopted anywhere in the country. You know how workers' compensation is the exclusive remedy? In other words, you get hurt on the job, you don't argue over should you have done that act, was there fault on the employer, was there fault on the employee? Someone has the idea, well, could you bring that concept to the medical field, and what that would do in theory anyways, would try and relieve the doctor from practicing defensive medicine. In other words, if they didn't practice defensive medicine and afraid of getting sued, maybe they wouldn't order so many tests. I mean, so there's a lot of ideas swirling around because people recognize, you know, literally the cost of health insurance is unsustainable. And, you know, and there's a lot of different reasons. You know, some involve consumers, some involve providers, some involve insurers.
An example of misuse might be an 85-year-old person being diagnosed with thyroid cancer. Okay, you can treat that thyroid cancer, and it may be a $100,000 treatment. However, it's a slow-moving cancer, and that person's going to have to live to be about 110 in order to have the cancer kill them. So why? And those are the types of things that seem to be going on unchecked.
Absolutely. My mother-in-law, I record it, my wife won't see it, but she's 88 years old and had a congestive heart failure, so they gave her a stress test. And it worked, gave her a heart attack. But you step back and say, why would you do a stress test on an 88-year-old lady who you know has that condition? That's exactly the sort of thing that, you know, consumers need to be engaged and say, do I really need this test? And what, you know, what are you going to do with the results?
I think so many people just trust their doctor, and your doctor can say, well, you really need this.
Right. And it may not be nefarious. I don't think the cardiologist my mother-in-law went to was, you know, he wanted to make more money, but someone should have said, well, what are you going to do with the result? Like the thyroid when 85, you know, what's it going to do to my quality of life and how long? And we all need to start asking those questions. I think that's a very good point.
Now, this is a committee that you're sitting on.
Insurance and finance.
So do you have, I don't want to say a pet project, but is there something within this committee that really has your attention that you're kind of focusing on?
Several bills that we'll go over in a minute, which directly affects us.
Okay.
Just thought you might want to get a big picture of a guy who knows all the ins and outs.
I don't know about that. It is interesting. I mean, and the committee does a lot of hard work, and we spend a lot of time up there. But insurance, I'll finally add close. Banks, securities, and every other financial entity is regulated at the federal level by and large. Insurance is the only financial services company that's primarily regulated at the state level. That's unique in the United States. And I will say, if you look at the numbers of the insurance companies that failed during the recent financial crisis compared to banks, you find there was many multiples of bank failures compared to insurance companies. So, tooting our own horn.
Interesting.
So, again, I appreciate the opportunity. Representative Prescott asked me down. Again, I'm just here to answer questions. And I urge any of you, either as a citizen or a town, to give my office a call. 800-300-5000. Because we have about 70-odd people who know insurance, and we can answer questions.
Great.
Great. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. See you tomorrow.
Yep.
Bottom line, the biggest push going on through the committee is to get consumers involved. I mean, almost everything that comes across is people got to start asking questions. Time to change. You know, 10 years ago, insurance rates were reasonable. Your premiums were reasonable, so nobody really cared a lot. You know, you were paying decent money, you got decent service. With the onset of ACA, you know, skyrocketing premiums and huge deductibles, everybody is struggling. So almost every bill that comes through, you'll see somewhere along the line of, we want people to start calling in, and these bills are directed directly towards that. As Christine will tell us. Go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Chris Ossenfort. I'm the Director of Government Relations for Anthem in South Portland. So just to give you a sense of my background, I actually grew up in Northport, just outside of Belfast, and sort of fell into working with the legislature when I started working for the State Department of Professional and Financial Regulation. So I've really seen the legislative process from a variety of sides, first from a state agency, and then I went to work for the State Chamber of Commerce for 6 years, and I've been at Anthem for just about 6 years. So as Representative Prescott mentioned, one of the bills that the committee is currently wrestling with, and in fact I think it's the only bill still left in your committee at this point in time, is called LD 1305, and it is designed to provide consumers with more information about healthcare costs and encourage them to shop for it. It's certainly a concept that we support. With the way the bill was drafted, we had some concerns about whether or not we could actually implement it in the fashion that they envisioned. So there have been a couple of subcommittee work sessions on it, and I think we made some progress today in trying to address some of the concerns about trying to implement it in a way that isn't really expensive and increase, our administrative costs, but yet provide people with that information. So there's another work session on Thursday. But basically, it's trying to, all the health insurance carriers, whether it's Anthem or some of our competitors, we all have tools that enable you to go to our website and find out, if you're looking at knee replacement surgery, you can go to our site, log in if you're one of our members, and then search that procedure within a radius that you choose. So you can decide you want to look in 25 miles, 50 miles, 100 miles if you're willing to travel that far or further. And you can find out how much it costs at different facilities, how many times they perform that particular procedure, and other information like that. So hopefully LD 1305 will end up in a way that enables people to do that and become more informed, because as you talked about before, everybody has a piece of it, of the healthcare costs. We are trying to do things to control costs. You asked before about like M.R.I.s. We do have a program where we try to encourage people to go, if they need an MRI, we'll call them and say, you need an MRI, you can get it for, X number of dollars at this facility or X number of dollars, at the other place. And if you haven't met your deductible and you're paying for that out of pocket, or you're paying co-insurance, that can affect how much you pay yourself. So it's definitely it's a complicated issue, but one that I think has a lot of potential.
When this bill first came out, it was by Senator Waterboro, and the idea was to give financial incentive for people to shop around. If you could shop around, you were willing to travel, and you could cut, say, $500 off the bill of what was generally offered, it was a 50-50 split. Which is the right idea, because everybody's trying, this way, those huge deductibles we talked about, it goes towards the deductible. So, and that was the idea. It's gone through a lot of nooks and crannies. We are gonna push it through. How it ends up is anybody's guess at this time, but that's the general idea. Again, almost everything's focused is letting people get involved, shop around. The idea of shopping is, and we're giving financial incentive too. So that's where that stands.
Now, is there any penalty, let's say we go with a knee replacement, I need to have a knee replacement, and there's 15 doctors within a 50-mile radius that perform that, and I choose to go to the doctor that's not necessarily the cheapest because maybe they have better references or it's somebody I know, family. Is there any penalty for the consumer who opts not to go with the cheaper?
Nope, your option. Everything falls on you to make that decision. We make sure of that. Because that's also a subject that keeps coming up is not just cost, but quality. As Christine had said, on their webpage, it tells you exactly, how many times they have done the same procedure, and most of the time the results of. So yeah, you can do whatever you want. Because we're also part of the bill as well. If you take the lowest cost and you have to go back, should you get paid again? The incentive again. So that's also one of the things we're wrestling with is quality of it. Which this bill has got a lot to it, a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
But we're still plugging away. We've been going at it for a while. We'll be back at we were at it today, and we'll be back at it Thursday. But it's the general idea is just get people involved, let them start shopping, and this ought to drive cost of insurance down generally.
John, any questions? Court?
I'd like to see the process personally simplified somewhat, because I've been looking for Part D insurance because I've reached that plateau or that stage in life where you start looking around for that. And I'll tell you quite frankly, it's real confusing. Whether it's AARP or Anthem or whatever, it's extremely complex. And with the different deductions and this and that, it just does not seem like there's any simple kind of a rhyme or reason to how they do things.
Right, because Part D is very complicated. What might be the right plan for you based on the medication you might be taking is not necessarily the right plan for somebody else. I haven't tried it in a while, but I did look at it when my folks were looking to switch Part D plans a couple of years ago, and the federal government does have a website where you can shop the plans that are offered and enter your medications, and it will make some recommendations for you. I don't know if you've tried that or seen that site, but I'll have to track it down because I don't remember off the top of my head, but I can find that and give it to you and.
All right, tomorrow,
Sure.
day after, I'll shoot you an email.
Yeah, because it does, and it's not necessarily, I don't know how helpful it'll be, but it does allow you to enter the medications you're taking and then make some recommendations to you, so.
The other question I have is, why is there such disparity between one medical institution and another over the cost of a particular procedure? And I know when the other gentleman, I think was
Yeah,
left,
he left, yeah.
he said the colonoscopy could range from $700 to $7,000. Why such disparity? I mean, you can't even go to a car dealership and find that kind of disparity between the same model car.
Well, obviously, I represent the insurance company, not the hospital, so sometimes we're asking that question too, but having spent a number of years working on health insurance now and having heard, multiple sides of the issue, I think there are a variety of factors. Some of it can depend on where the hospital is located and the health of the community, whether they get a lot of sick people, whether they have a lot of emergency room visits, whether there's a lot of bad debt and charity care, where they're either not being reimbursed or not being reimbursed the full amount by either the state or federal government, depending on whether it's Medicaid or Medicare. There are certain fixed costs, so volume, the population that they're serving can have something to do with it. If you've got to cover, and I'm totally making up numbers, but let's say it costs $1 million to run a facility, and one facility serves 10,000 people and another facility serves 100,000 people, those fixed costs get to be distributed over a bigger population, and so that may present a cost advantage. Those are just some of the factors that I've heard about over the years. But there's sometimes they can be similarly situated, and it can be very different, and we are, trying to address that. We've developed some different network offerings to try to drive people to facilities and try to, and I think if you guys are part of the Maine Municipal Employees Trust Program, then you have a tiered hospital plan, so you get your cost share, your copays and deductibles can vary depending on which provider you go to. So there are some efforts underway, but it is very, one of the problems with healthcare, and I've heard the superintendent say this a million times, is, you push down over here and it pops up over here. It's a little bit like, pushing the water the balloon. It just keeps moving around. It's hard to get, to actually shrink it.
So I guess medical services doesn't always equate with what physician's going to give you the best service, but the medical institution that has the best financial record.
Cost does not necessarily indicate quality, and that's one of the discussions that happened today at the subcommittee meeting on LD 1305. We all tend to think that the most expensive is the best, but whether it's a car or your house or health care, it's not always the case. But.
Hey, Gordon?
Yes.
My second week on the job, that was the very first question I asked. Well, why so much in this area and why so much in that area? And that was the reason I got, was because they're further out and they have less patients, and it's like any kind of insurance, they spread it out amongst the quantity of people they have. But just want to let you know, I was on that too. Let's see,
Hello, my name is Lindsay Jandrasco. I'm an optometrist at Associated Eye Care in East Waterboro. And a few months ago, I contacted Representative Prescott regarding a bill being introduced by the Maine Optometric Association, which I'm a member of. I contacted him because of his position on the Insurance and Finance Committee, and also because the bill is really relevant to eye care in this area. A problem that many eye care providers are facing currently are with vision care plans, which is a vision care plan is a separate eye care insurance that people can purchase along with their health insurance that can cover for routine eye exams and help reimburse for materials such as glasses and contacts. With the vision care plans, they are dictating what products patients can choose for their glasses and lenses, and in addition, these plans are mandating the use of certain labs to make the glasses, most of which are out of state for us. The bill that we're introducing aimed to increase the patient choice regarding the products that they were getting, and also so that they don't have to just use the vision care plans products. Also, it allows eye doctors to use Maine labs to support local businesses. This can decrease the wait time for glasses from 2 weeks through a vision care plan lab to just a few days, a matter of days in many cases. Furthermore, it also helps to stop or at least slow down the increase in cost of glasses, because as it is now, some of these forced vision care plan discounts are causing the discounts to be so severe that it makes causes prices to increase for non-vision care plan patients to make up for that. Vision care plans are also including items in their contracts that dictate what price practitioners can charge on non-covered services. So stopping this practice improves the stability and predictability of our business, and overall these changes support local businesses rather than larger out-of-state corporate giants. Representative Prescott made time to meet with me and the president of the Maine Optometric Association. During the meeting, we discussed our bill, and he also spent a good amount of time talking to us about aspects of his own bill, which he asked for our input on as eye care providers on how transparency can be improved for patients regarding their medical bills, kind of what we were just talking about. He was very adamant that these things can be improved so that people don't have surprises when it comes to their medical bills. He was very diligent, spent a good amount of time with us, and I know he did the same amount with some other people in the healthcare industry. Overall, he was really easy to get in contact with and responded very quickly every time I contacted him. He was very receptive and helpful to our cause. He helped us to get our bill through the work session and committee hearing. He was genuinely interested in improving the healthcare scene in Maine. And I found his time and effort to be really greatly appreciated by me and my office and the Maine Optometric Association as a whole.
So where's that bill stand?
That bill passed committee unanimous 13-0. It's on its way to the House. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Angela? Yeah, wow.
Time for our friendly neighborhood pharmacist.
Good evening, I'm Angela Ord, and I own Good for All Pharmacy, for those of you who may not know that. And one of the, every year, the pharmacy here in Maine, we're always looking at different obstacles and different things. And what's been happening recently is that at times, the generic medications in recent years has gone up dramatically. For instance, doxycycline, which is a drug used very commonly, an antibiotic, went from $10 a bottle to $2,000 a bottle. But unfortunately for us, it took about 4 to 6 months for some of the insurance companies to then change the prices so that we could be reimbursed appropriately. And it's continued to decline our reimbursement. So I know that there's an issue a lot of times with, cost of medications, but let me tell you, it is not the pharmacies that are making a killing. The decrease in reimbursement for small independents such as myself has gotten so critical, I feel that this could put us out of business. So there's a bill that we worked on this year, LD 1150, and basically what it did is it is providing more transparency for how insurance companies calculate reimbursement specifically on generic medications. A lot of medications, as I said, there have been a number of companies that have gone out of the industry, so therefore generics are going up in price, unfortunately, like a lot of brand medications. I did present at the commission. I did go up and testify twice, and I ran a report from our pharmacy here in town. Since January 1st until I think it was April 24th, I ran the report. There were almost 3,000 prescriptions that we were forced to fill under cost. So there was over $10,000 that we were paid less than what we paid for the medicine. So with that kind of business, it's not long that you're out of business because you can't afford to fill medications at below cost. And that's not even the prescriptions that are filled at a penny profit, 5 cents profit, this and that. So this bill is very, very important to myself as an independent, I think all pharmacies here in Maine. And there's a lot of reasons, and I don't think it's necessarily always the insurance companies. I don't want to say it's one sector versus another, because on the other hand, then you have these drug manufacturers that are just, spiking the prices astronomically. But Joanne was very helpful with that bill, and Ron Lantham is here. He's an attorney who helps with independent pharmacy and different bills. So that bill did pass committee 12-1, and it's being voted on the floor. And so tomorrow. So I think I've really appreciated all of his help and on the committee. It's just nice when you go up there to have somebody local who understands, your local business and your local things that you need, and that you have that support. So I really appreciate all that you've done for us, but it was a very important bill. So, and as far as drugs from Canada, I know that they are cheaper, but a lot of times the quality isn't there. There's been so many studies on it, and I think it certainly is an issue overall, just like a lot of healthcare issues that needs to be looked at from the big picture, because it's terrible, and I see it where people have to choose one medicine over another, or this versus another. But just like with other healthcare costs, I think if consumers also looked at prices comparatively, and I know that you have the Walmart $4 plan in this, but if you look at totality, they may charge $4 or $5 some of the bigger stores for a couple meds, but then on the other things they're drastically higher. And so often, that's where we come in, I feel, is to really be able to provide, the best pricing for all medications, not just certain ones. So anyway, I really had appreciated your help, and just wanted to share with you what our local representative has been really helpful with.
Okay.
Included in this bill, there was also no appeals process. When they would get lowballed like that, they had no one to turn to. So included in the bill is now an appeals process, a separate board that can take care of that. And they can only, when they price their drugs, it has to be, two other comparable national brands available. So we're hoping that controls the cost as well.
Great. And hopefully that will in turn help your business.
Exactly. I mean, I employ all my people are local, and I feel like it would be a travesty if we weren't here in the community.
Great. Any questions? All right. Thank you.
Ron?
Hi, good evening. My name is Ron Lanson. My firm, True North Political Solutions, represents Maine Independent Pharmacies, and we've been involved with Maine Independence for like 6 years at least. Yeah, so we've seen a lot, and over that time we've worked with a lot of different legislators. I met Representative Prescott this year. So we talked about the problem, the Bill 1150, and really what that would mean if Angela's were not in business anymore. And how many consumers that would impact, which would be a lot, because being in a lot of rural areas, there's problems with consumers actually accessing particular pharmacies, and especially when they have a continuity of care. They've established a relationship with their personal pharmacist. They want to be able to keep that relationship with the personal pharmacist. So we want to make sure that pharmacist is there to serve the community, and that's what we're here for. So I worked with the representative on many different occasions during this whole process. I was very happy. I really couldn't figure a stronger ally to have in Augusta. Whenever there was a problem or an issue we needed some help on, I sent him a text message, and almost immediately he would get back to you. So I like the fact that he's available, and he really does care. He really does get to the meat of the issue, and looks and sees, okay, as a business person, how is this going to affect the community, the business, and so forth, and really does try to work to create good law. So any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
What measures from a legal standpoint, I guess, are you pursuing that would be incentives for big pharmaceutical companies to not just gouge people to death, which is basically what when you have this prescription that this lady was talking about that went from $10 to $2,000, where's the justification for that? I mean, I know that pharmaceutical companies spend a lot of money in research for development of a particular drug, and they need to recoup some of those costs, obviously, of the research in their billing. But some of the prices are just so exorbitant, particularly with any type of cancer medication or kidney medication or anything like that. I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of dollars. And what steps can be taken to force pharmaceutical companies to, you know, bring that amount down? I mean, it's just mind-boggling that they can do that.
That's a very good question, and it's one of those questions, I hate to say this, but it depends on the angle that you take. So for this particular issue, because the generics were going up and down like this, I always make it very simple. So say, for example, this is a drug bottle. Today's Monday, it costs $1.25, all right? Tuesday, it costs $1, so she's actually lost 25 cents. So the insurance companies will come and, you know, give her a 25-cent reduction in her reimbursement. But if we take that same scenario where it costs $1 on Monday, now it goes up to $1.50 on Tuesday, she's looking to be paid 50 cents extra. Some of the insurance companies would say, okay, well, because there's nothing that prevents us from paying you that extra 50 cents, like right now, sometimes it's been months, weeks before she would get that recouped extra 50 cents. I'm going to get to your question in just a second. So that's one thing that this law tries to stop, is it makes it so that when there's a market price or a market fluctuation for a particular drug, the pharmacy gets paid accurately. Now you're talking about price overall for a particular drug for a consumer. So this is where it gets a little weird. So right now what pharma is doing is they're saying, look, we're creating better science, right? So in better science, we're coming up to these conclusions where these drugs that we're making now are now almost curative or curative. So there's not going to be repeat customers, right? So if there's not going to be repeat customers, then 9 out of 10, a drug like Gilead Sovaldi, that's the hepatitis C drug, that's like $84,000 for a 12-week course of medication. 9 out of 10 times it cures people. So they're saying, okay, well now we're going from a system to where if you had hepatitis C, you were just taking maintenance drugs to make sure that your life was okay, so those drugs are priced like this. Well, now that we're not going to have those repeat customers, we have to ask for premium pricing because we need to recoup our investment. Well, it flows into, now you're dealing with doctors, and the doctors have the fee-for-service, which they get paid based on, each time that they see you. And you have that going on versus like the payer community, the insurance community, that does their job, and they say, look, we want to make sure that these costs are controlled, and we want to lower costs so these people can actually access the medicine. Because what difference does it make if you make the best drug in America but nobody can pay for it, right? So you're having that fight right now in public policy through legislation on which way is it that we can make sure that consumers get better science, but they can actually access the medicine. So until you start picking pieces and kind of figure out, okay, well, who's at fault for this, and maybe how we can change a reimbursement system, or make sure now what there's called is value-based healthcare. So let's just say if you're for oncology drugs, it's really big for cancer right now. They're saying, well, if the drug is priced at $90,000, and there's drug A and there's drug B, and drug B, there's no clinical distinction between drug A, but it costs $50,000. Should we put a consumer, force them onto drug B because that's lower cost? Like, what does that do? So there's all kinds of like studies and things to figure out if one's justified over the other. And it doesn't matter what pill the person takes out of those two. What will end up happening is, depending on how the patient gets better, is how that physician will be incentivized. It won't be, well, I'm going to prescribe the highest priced medicine because I get paid the most. It'll be what that patient outcome is. If it's guaranteed that drug B works better on drug A and it gets them cured faster, then I'll be paid appropriately because I prescribe drug B in a timely fashion. Does that make sense? I know it's like a lot of information, but it's like, it really depends. Like, it's a loaded question. You just have to attack it right. So I just wanted to tell you what was going on so you can kind of see that, it's a lot to think about.
I mean, you got these controls, and on the other side, you got the stock market.
Right.
And so, you're the president of Pfizer, who are you responsible to? You're responsible to your stock owners.
Well, yeah, you want to
So-
make sure that the drug that you manufacture gets used, and that's going to drive the stock price up. But, at the same time, they're looking at it, and I'm not defending them, I'm just saying they're looking at it, and they're saying, well, if we're actually putting the research into making a better mousetrap than this other guy does, and again, we have less customers, we really are saving you money long term, because, yeah, you get the sticker shock of $84,000 for that drug I was talking about, right? But you don't have to pay that anymore for the rest of your life. Compared to if I just take a maintenance drug for the rest of my life, that I got to go in for tests, and then the condition doesn't get any better, and it gets worse, and I got to be put on another drug. It could be $1 million lifelong, over the life of a person that you could be paying compared to this 84 that stops it right there, and there you go. So it just depends on how you look at it.
So you have a huge amount of lobbyists with big money being spent to keep the controls out of healthcare, and now, and I'm looking at a representative, and you on one hand may be thinking, okay, I'm for an open free market economy. On the other hand, you see what's going on and how some of these companies are just so it's got to put you in a little bit of a tight spot too.
Fortunately for me, no.
Philosophically.
No. I know where you're going with that, and yeah, I've seen it happen. And it happened most recently, as a matter of fact. We had some bills stalled out. The premise was that people that didn't like the fact that it passed committee so well turned around and started yelling, financial note, like it's going to cost the state money, which just wasn't true. It stalls the bill out, and it goes over to this other committee appropriations and whatnot. So, but it's not politics, it's business. And I just heard, and you made it a point, because people are well invested in the market. They're going to protect their interests. Every bill, I'm going to hit just a few bullet points for like 2 minutes after this, and you're going to notice every bill you just heard and every bill in here actually combats that. We're actually giving the power back to us as people, instead of big money and insurance companies and administrative hospitals conducting their business. But yeah, it does happen. Again, it's business. It's no different than the business you're doing here. You battle your budget, and you push here, and it's going to pop up there, and you're always going to get someone that doesn't like what you're doing. And it usually rotates around money, especially in politics.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Hey, did you want to speak it up? Okay. I'll just finish up real quick, a couple bullet points. Cut to the chase here. Telemedicine. This one, I didn't write down the thing, but this is telemedicine, whereas if you're in a main hospital and there's a specialist in Boston, you can get right on TV and get advice from that doctor. There was a licensing problem. The insurance companies were saying, well, that doctor is not licensed in Maine. So we took care of that. Step therapy. This is ACA. You go to your doctor knows you need this drug way over here. Well, you have to go through all of these other drugs first to get to it. Whether they work for you or not, to get to this one. Well, we took care of that. Also included in that is what they call off-label drugs, which is a funny term because it doesn't really describe what it is. Basically, there's a drug and it says what it's used for, but your doctor knows that it can also be used for something else. Well, you can't use it. Well, you can't now. My favorite, these are drugs, the latest thing on the market, it's funny you shouldn't be surprised, these are drugs you cannot get high on. You bust a pill, all the good stuff goes, you melt the pill, it's too thick to put in your and the problem with that was nobody knew where to put it financially. So we agreed that we would just, wherever the other drug landed in the tier, in the copay and whatever it was right where that one's going to go. And that one actually went pretty smooth with all concerned on that one. This bill has to do with breast cancer, and there's like 5 types of this. Already in law, the decision to stay 48 hours after surgery falls on the doctors and the patient or the woman. But as we all know, by the time you get big money involved, 8 hours after surgery, your vital signs are good, and not everybody really knows their rights. So it's more mental anguish than anything else. And gentlemen, I think you can relate this to your own bodies. So this bill directly says the woman makes final decision. She can stay up to 48 hours just for the comfort if she chooses. Synchronization of prescriptions. This was actually directed at the Asian but it really affects everybody. If you're already on a schedule, you already have prescriptions on, say, the first of the month, you go see the doctor, he gives you another prescription, and you go on the 15th. This allows the pharmacies to adjust the quantity to put you on schedule. So you don't have to make those 2 trips a month, you can just make 1 month, you know, same trip for everything else. We did this thing on chiropractor billing. In the state of Maine, you get licensed to be a chiropractor. They can make several different adjustments or procedures. Well, the insurance companies didn't want to pay them for that. They said that procedure belongs with this type of doctor over here. Well, we decided that, you know what, you passed the test in the state of Maine, you got a license, Maine says you can do this procedure, you're going to get paid for it. And so that one went through very well. It's the one for the pharmacy and the vision care. And this one's insurance related, not so much healthcare. This is equipment rental. For these people that have, you know, you're going to rent a backhoe or something like that, you know, you can rent a car, but you can get extra insurance. Well, they didn't really have that in the industry. So now you got somebody's, you know, $100,000 machine, you have a problem, it goes on to either homeowners or personal insurance or something like that. You can now, this is not a mandate, by the way. This is just so the company can offer it if they choose. And those are just some of the bullet points that go on and on. I brought this for you. This is a complete list of everything we dealt with. And this is current, what some of the stuff's been signed into law, and some of the bills kicking around still.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
If you don't mind, we're going to head out. It's been a long day. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone.
Very informative.
Yeah, very, very interesting.
Hey, how you doing?
All right, and now, with his ever patience back there, County Commissioner Michael Cote. So, in the past year, districts have changed, and I think most folks know that we had Dan Cabral as our county commissioner for a long time, but now County Commissioner Cote has picked up parts of Waterboro and is our representative now, and he and I had a discussion, told him we'd love to see him at a meeting so he could introduce himself and folks could get to know who he is, and I was very, very excited that he very quickly responded and said, you know, he'd come to a meeting, and so I think that's wonderful that you're willing to take the time and come visit with us, so thank you very much for that.
I think that the people in the county should know that of all the county commissioners that we've had represent the town of Waterboro, you're the only one that has showed up.
You're the first.
You're the first. I mean, there has been several invitations that went out and they just went unheeded, and I would certainly commend you for being as responsive as you are. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. First of all, that's my job, you know, and it's like anything else. I mean, I'm not judging anybody else, but if you're gonna run for an office, you better be committed to the office. And if you're not, then don't do it, you know. So anytime you folks have a question, anytime you want to talk with me, anytime you have an issue, I really would appreciate it if you call. I view the position I hold the same as a state representative. I represent 5 towns, just so you know. It's Alfred, Shapley, Sanford, Waterboro, and Lyman. I live in Shapley from Sanford originally, and I feel that, you know, we have a municipal level, we have a county level and state level and federal level, and we all have different jobs, different roles that we do and services that we provide, and a lot of people, and I'm sure you'll understand what I'm saying when I say it, they don't know what we do in county government. They don't have a clue. The biggest question I got when I was running for the position is, that's fine, Sonny, you're running for county commissioner, but what does a county commissioner do? So if I might just touch on briefly, just on some of the departments within the county. Of course, the sheriff's office and the jail are probably the biggest and the most well-known. The Register of Deeds, which is a pretty self-explanatory, I think, department. Register of Probate, which handles, actually we have a passport office in the Register of Probate court now. We have had for a while, so that is available if people want to go get a passport. They can do it there. That's something that's not widely known, but we do have that on our website. We also do name changes, adoptions, conservatorships, guardianships, that type of thing. We also have emergency management, which a lot of people have seen the big command van around, and that's available to the towns. If you call EMA, you need it. The EMA director will assess the situation and send it out if appropriate. So that is available. I think people need to understand that's a pretty nice piece of equipment, and it belongs to all of you. It belongs to all of us. Also, on the DA's office side, the DA and the ADAs are paid for by the state. We have no oversight on them, but we do pay all the clerical staff. We do pay all the office costs, rentals of buildings, that type of thing. So we have a lot of personnel in the DA's office that we oversee. So I think that's just kind of an overview, a little bit of an overview about what we do. Again, I'm very committed to the job. I've been at it 2 years now. I have about 2 years left on my term. I'm very happy to have you folks aboard as one of my towns. So at that, I guess I'll just leave it for any questions or comments or anything.
The DA's office is an example of how the county seems to be in between. It seems kind of crazy to have the DAs paid by the state and the secretaries paid by the county, and so you can knock all the secretaries out from the county budget and or the state. It just seems to how do you deal with not having control over half of that budget?
Part of the issue with county government is you have a lot, it's not like municipal government in that we have elected officials. You have an elected sheriff, elected judge of probate, registered deeds, 5 commissioners, a treasurer that's elected. You only have so much control. It's mostly budgetary money control. It's not a lot of other types of control. Just to get back to your question about the DA's office, and I don't know if Gordon will remember this or not, but years ago, I have an old 1934 budget report that the county commissioners put out, the 33, I'm sorry. And they paid the judges, the Superior Court judges, the municipal court judges, the coroner. They had a whole host. They had a health inspector. They had code enforcement. They had a lot of things that was done by the county. And at one point, when we had municipal courts, the state said, well, this county attorney business and this idea of municipal courts, it's not working out, so we're going to take over the courts. And you're going to give us free space at the courthouse and forever. And the clerks of the court are going to have space in there forever. And the DA is going to have space in there forever, and you can never charge us. In turn, we'll pay the DA, the ADAs, that type of thing. So that's how we ended up. I believe that's a correct assessment of how we ended up with this 2-part system, which I agree with you. It should all be under the premises of the state. It makes a lot more sense, okay? So we have a manager that just manages the DA's office, if you will. Then we have the DA who really has absolute control over the DA's office when you really think about it, because that person's elected. But they're answerable to the Attorney General, not really to us. So yeah, it's kind of different. So you kind of walking through a maze at times to try to figure out how you're going to come out at the other end because of the way you have to do business. But county government's a very interesting part of government. We do a lot. I think I'm pretty proud of what we do. But I think we need to educate better. We need to let people know what we're doing, and I really think it's imperative that if you folks have a question or comment, that you give me a call. Really, if you want to come and talk, you want me to come talk to you individually, that's fine too.
Gary?
Mike, you in favor of the jail control coming back to the county?
We are, and I'll explain the reasoning. LD 186, which is the bill that they're talking about right now, it gets bounced all over the place. The numbers change on it all the time. Back when the jails, I think the first thing we have to remember is the county owns the jails. We own them. The state doesn't own them. So the takeover really wasn't a takeover. It was taking all the fees, the court fines, the Community Corrections Act money, all of those fees, and it was taking them up to Augusta for them to disperse them back at their will when they felt like doing it, and to whom they would give them to. So York County is one of the premier jails or receiving jails, and I feel that where the people in this county have spent the kind of money they have on the jail, that we should have it back. We believe if it returns, the initial impact it's going to hurt a little bit, but in the long run, we'll get back to well, I'll give you an example. In 2004, I think we made $500,000 on the jail. Okay, 2005, maybe in 3 it was 500,000. At one point, it was up to $1 million, or even better than that. And that's because now the way the formula works, the state feels it's $22 a day if you house an inmate from another county. Back in the 03, 04, 05 period, we were getting $85 a day. So if we could get real cost plus a little something extra, we could pretty much self-sustain it, I think. So yeah, I'm very much in favor of it.
Thank you.
Wasn't part of the problem before was the state wasn't contributing their contributions to house state inmates at the facility, and that was causing the county to have to spend more money than was necessary for prisoner housing?
Is that initially after we built the jail, or before, or?
I think it was after we built the jail, when state prisoners would come down. That was supposed to be funded by the state, but they weren't. It was like the hospital situation where they weren't paying what they were supposed to be paying, so it left the county taxpayer having to pick up the slack in order to keep the jails running.
Well, I think that may have been an issue at one time, but the real reason they wanted them back was, look at it from their perspective, they didn't have the infrastructure of the new jails. So the counties that built new jails won't be, of course the jail that we had was designed, the old jail was designed for 50 inmates. When we got out of there, we had over 200 some inmates in there, and we had lawsuits galore. We were paying boarding costs that were unbelievable. So we actually did better when we built the jail. But then shortly thereafter, we got punished by the state when they took it back. So the real answer is to get it back, take it back without any state control other than the inspections and the rules and regulations that the Department of Corrections has. But it belongs to us. It needs to stay with us. We need to regulate it and run it locally. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Very much appreciated.
All right,
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Hearing a delegation, anybody like to speak? Correspondence, we have our motor vehicle agent report and the EcoMaine recycling reports. Reports and staff initiatives, we already heard from Representative Prescott. Selectmen's reports, Gordon?
I won't mention the movie. No, I'm good. I did have one thing, but I don't have the facts with me present to do anything with it, so I'll wait till the next meeting.
Make them up, Gordon.
No.
John?
I don't like to make up things.
The other thing I'll report on is the County Budget Committee is continuing to meet every Wednesday evening. And we've got a lot of work ahead of us. Town Administrator's report.
I will be exceedingly brief, Madam Chair. Just a reminder to folks at home, Tuesday, June 9th, please vote at M.R.S.A East, and town meeting is a continuation of Election Day, and that is Saturday, May 13th at 10 o'clock. June 13th at 10 o'clock at the middle school. The copies of the budget and the town meeting warrant are here in Town Hall. Comprehensive plan documents are here in Town Hall. And as of tomorrow morning, we'll have additional salt shed handouts here. A reminder that's out there for quite a ways, Friday, June 19th will be a day when the code office will be closed. So we're going to blow up Tammy's office and we're going to reorganize it. So it's
Not this Tammy.
yes, Tammy Bellman, sorry, the code office. secretary. We're going to drastically change the furniture in there, and it's not going to be a day when the code office will be open to the public, and we'll keep telling people that. DOT, there's some concerns around town about the delays, and either Doug or I, as well as Fire Chief Matt Bors, will be going to the DOT meeting tomorrow. They have a meeting every Wednesday on a project update, and talking about whether or not the contractor should be forced to do a detour, a signed detour. I'm told that the blockage was, or the backup was miles long on Friday. They didn't pave, but they still did construction work on a very busy Friday before a holiday that caused some problems. And fire chief said this is unacceptable. It's just way too long of a line. If you had to get an ambulance through, you just couldn't do it safely. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, new business, discuss vote on committee appointments. This evening we met with an applicant for the planning board. What is the pleasure of the board?
I would make a motion that we approve Mrs. Worth for the position on the planning board.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. And our other committee appointment that we had this evening has to be rescheduled because he got stuck in traffic on 202. Discuss vote to approve renewal of a state liquor license for Blast from the Past. In our packets, we had reports from the contract deputy, the code enforcement officer, and the fire department, all recommending passage. Is there a motion from the board?
I will move that we accept the application for liquor license.
I'll second that with discussion.
Okay. Discussion.
I think that the owners down there need to be commended. I know that in the past there was issues with traffic congestion and some traffic offenses, and whatever steps they have taken has greatly improved the situation down there. We no longer have those issues. We no longer have the complaints from people that we had in the past.
And that's for the Friday night car show.
And that's for the Friday night car show. That's correct. And it's, I think that when we were, when we criticized them, that was one thing, but I think now that when it's corrected, they ought to receive praise for that as well. So.
Okay. So all those in favor of approving the liquor license? Okay. We have no old business. Discuss vote to approve the minutes of the May 12th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Chairman Jurek,
Yep.
new business C.
Oh, geez, yeah. I skipped right over that, didn't I? Discuss vote to set the date for the first Selectmen's meeting in June. So our June meeting should be June 9th. However, that is election day. So I was thinking that it might be better if we actually held our meeting on June 2nd and then the regularly scheduled meeting on the 23rd. That gives us another meeting before town meeting in case we need to have any cleanup work that we need to do, and it doesn't have us here on election day when we wouldn't have Gary anyways. I would assume that probably Selectman Littlefield will be busy that day. I suspect that Christina's probably going to be busy that day, so it might be better if we do it on June 2nd.
Sounds like a good idea.
I would move that we schedule our next meeting for June 2nd.
Second.
All those in favor? All right. Thank you, Christina. All right, so now we've got the motion to approve the minutes from May 12th. John made the motion. Gordon, you second? All those in favor? And then discuss vote to approve the minutes of the May 19th special meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. The week's action list. You could just get in touch with Miss Worth and let her know, Christina, that she's been approved, and Dave, if we could get her set up on the planning board with emails and whatnot. And then also we schedule the other applicant for our June 2nd meeting. Dave, you have the PowerPoint presentation up on the board, up on the website for the salt shed. And
it's up already. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Discussion of agenda items. Now, do we have a guest coming in from Poland Springs Water?
Yeah, I'll have to follow up with him, because originally I didn't realize you were gonna change your June meeting, so
Yeah.
I'll make sure he can come on the 2nd instead of the 9th.
Okay.
And I'll reschedule, Mr. Shute, the, other committee
Okay.
applicant.
Okay. Anything else for that agenda?
Yeah, I'd like to have a discussion on the formulation of an ordinance review committee to begin looking at all the municipal ordinances and updating those and bringing them in line.
And I'm sure other stuff will come up. Items needing signature are the minutes from May 12th and May 19th, as well as the blast from the past liquor license. All of our reminders will scroll after our meeting. And with that, we will adjourn after a 5-minute recess into a workshop to discuss the proposed highway entrance ordinance. We are?